Hi, folks. Welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, it's a Monday morning. What can I say? It's a Monday morning. I mean, there's not much else to say about that. The weekend was in the news, at least. I guess, the world's still standing, so I guess it's not too bad. The hard line, date, time, everything against Hamas to lay down their arms, disperse, turn over all the hostages has come and gone. And they've agreed to some of the things, but nothing yet has really been done. The news is kind of iffy on what actually is going on. A lot of conflicting reports. It looks like that Israel is unhappy with the whole deal and maybe not agreeing to parts of it or all of it. And kind of the same thing with Hamas. So we'll see. The president has been praising it as a victory and that they are negotiating things. And now they're saying it's going to take a much, a lengthy process for this to be done, even though just days ago, it sounded like that it had to be done by Sunday afternoon or else all hell would break loose, because that's actually what he said. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't think that's the end-all be-all thing. All the other stuff that I talk about regularly is moving around pretty quickly. This is the main thing that I've been trying to get across to people, is that how rapid things are kind of transpiring. It's not a slow pace anymore. It's pretty fast, and there's a lot of stuff. I mean, there's still protests going on at ICE detention facilities in Portland and Chicago. I wouldn't call them peaceful, but in the videos I've seen, I'm not sure that I'd call them riots either. In fact, I've been kind of surprised that the numbers appear to be pretty low at what's going on. But the president has called up National Guard troops in Oregon to go to Portland, and then a judge put a stop to that, so he called up National Guard troops in California to go to Oregon, and, well, a judge put a stop to that. So he called up troops in Texas, and the governor of Texas said, yes, I'm supportive. You can have our troops to go to Portland. And apparently last night, a federal judge put an injunction on sending any troops from any state into the state of Oregon. So, is the president going to abide by that order? Are they going to fight it? I'm sure they'll fight it. We'll see. But things are. Here's my take, and it's not a left or right take. It's just a different take. In watching some of this footage and trying to have an unbiased view and realize that, yes, we have a horrible illegal immigrant problem that we need to take care of, but yet on the other hand, we also have a constitution, and we don't want to build a force of federal troops, basically, that they don't care about laws and rights and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that illegals have all of those rights, but in seeing what's going on, I personally, and I could be completely wrong, I personally think that there is an effort behind all of this to push the left to react violently. I think that's what they want. And when you see the actions of these federal troops, these federal agents, and kind of wondering, like, what is their directive? Like, how are they being trained and told to do things? Because of someone that's worked in law enforcement myself in the past, I can tell you, watching some of these, a lot of the tactics being used are certainly not condoned by law enforcement or taught. It is strange what's going on. So I think that they're probably hoping to provoke some type of bigger confrontation. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's just the way that it's going. Unmarked regular civilian cars pulling up with guys that are dressed in civilian clothes but have masks on. jumping on people and dragging them down the street, kicking and screaming, throwing them in the back of cars, not making like a proper arrest to them, like you would see normal, law enforcement do, pepper spraying and shoving and punching civilians that are Americans that are, protesting what they're doing. Not really a lot of them are becoming physically violent. They're just verbally protesting. It's definitely a different scene. And I seriously, I'm trying to take a balanced view on this and not sound like I'm a lefty or whatever. But we haven't seen law enforcement do some of these things since probably the 60s during the race riots, if even then sometimes. This is not typical behavior of American law enforcement when dealing with protesting Americans. Rioting Americans where they're doing violent things, throwing, weapons and hard objects and Molotov cocktails, and that kind of stuff is different. But most of the videos I've seen, they just kind of look like they're protesting, they're angry, they're stupid, they're saying, vile things. But so I know that you may not always agree with everything I say. That's fine. I don't agree with half the things I say. But I do think that they're trying to provoke more violent outbursts and activity. So we'll see how that happens. I think it would just play well for the Trump administration in saying that, these left people are bad. For instance, here in the last week or so, the president has used the word insurrection several times, calling the people in Portland and Chicago and other places insurrectionists. And that word is kind of special, not just because of January 6th being used, but if he was to continue to use that and to make a case, that's where martial law comes in. If you can make a case that there are insurrectionists, then executive orders and emergency orders can be, justified. So anyways, I know there's some of you watching this that just think I'm a horrible person for saying these things, but I think that there's just a pattern being built here, and we need to kind of pay attention. The other thing I want to talk about more is what I talked about yesterday, is the economy. People need to wake up. It's not doing good. Construction right now, new construction is almost at the lowest it's ever been. Trucking companies, I said yesterday that freight accounts and freight schedules and stuff are low, almost the lowest they've ever been. Well, just general trucking movement is almost at the lowest it's been in a very long time. Maybe not the lowest ever, but at extremely low numbers. Also, if you look at the U.S. dollar based solely on gold, not in what it's trading on the open market, the trade dollar, but I'm talking about actual currency based on U.S. gold, or not U.S. gold, but gold. The U.S. dollar has lost 50% of its value since the 1st of January, just this year. That's significant. 50% of value. I mean, if we were, there's a mosquito flying around my head and it's driving me nuts. I hate that little in your ear. 50% currency value drop in less than a year. You're getting real close to talking about hyperinflation type numbers. Seriously, you are. That's significant. Most people aren't talking about it. All they want to talk about is how the stock market is doing so great. The economy, oh my gosh, the stock market, and Bitcoin's record highs, stock market's record highs. Stock market, probably 50% or more of the stock market right now is just AI stocks. It's AI tech companies. In fact, the AI bubble on the stock market is about 6 to 10 times bigger than the dot-com bubble was. And for those of you, old fogies and stuff, you remember the dot-com bubble burst. Now, I'm not saying that if it happens with AI, that AI is done. No, because, well, the dot-com stuff, web, internet is not done either, just because it had a bubble burst, a couple of decades ago. And so the point is that the stock market looks amazing because really just a small handful of AI companies that are doing exceedingly well because of AI growth. It's not because all of these companies are doing really well. For instance, just this past week, both Coca-Cola and 3M reported that they have negative cash flows. It's the first time for Coca-Cola and one of the first times for 3M. Now, those are two really big companies, kind of stable American companies that's been around a long time. And so we're seeing signs, big signs, not just the little signs that when you go to buy, groceries, that your grocery bill's higher, when you try to buy a roast for, dinner, and it's $30 and $40 for a small little roast that'll feed 2 or 3 people. It's more than just that. Even on the bigger level, I've said it for a long time that there's been a recession on Main Street, but not quite Wall Street. Well, I think the Wall Street recession is starting to happen. It's the big companies are starting to feel this. They're starting to feel the slowdown. They're starting to feel that people aren't buying, that they're having to cut back and cut back and cut back. And at some point, it's going to start snowballing. And people need to wake up to this. This is not, a small deal. When you look at a lot of these numbers, we're talking a very large, good gracious, that thing is just, won't leave me alone. We're talking the potential for a very large economic collapse. When you're looking at a lot of factors, bigger than 2008, bigger than 1991, we're talking some serious numbers here. So when you look at the possibility, well, not war is happening, right? We are involved in war. We may not have our troops lined up in battle formations, shooting at other nations, but we are definitely involved in war. Okay. Just yesterday, the president said that we're probably going to soon be making attacks on drug cartels on land in Venezuela, not just ships, boats out floating around in the ocean, but actually on land. So we are involved in war. We've been involved in Ukraine for a long time. We're involved with Israel directly. We've got very serious issues here in the United States when it comes to just, the violence on the streets, people being assassinated, school shootings, protests, trying to round up all of these illegals, possibly, and I know I'm getting into some weeds and gray area here, but basically that's being used as a tool to train up an almost Gestapo type of force. We've got morality on a massive decline. I know that many of you are going to say, yeah, but there's like a revival happening right now, especially after Charlie Kirk. Talking about a real one. And then we've got this economic collapse looming that it's big. All these other financial crises and recessions and stuff, we never had gold skyrocketing and dollars being dumped around the world. So that's a whole different factor. Not anywhere near the magnitude that's happening now. Gold is very near $4,000. Silver is very near $50. That's extremely significant. And you all need to be preparing yourselves, really getting serious, because it's a perfect storm, folks. How much more can I say it? It is a perfect storm. It's not good. So you need to be getting your houses in order. You need to be preparing yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually every day, setting goals, working towards them, because we may not have much more time of this normal world that we live in. All right. Thank you all for watching. Catch you in the next video.